Hello, everyone. Welcome. Today we're going to be talking about some cool stuff in the mid 1800s that had to do with encrypted messages that were being sent in the London Times. And anyone who's done research on this will know. How many people have heard of the Lost Franklin expedition? Yes, many people. But and those who haven't, I'll talk about it for a minute. So some of this is already covered in my book, which I co-wrote with Klaus Schmidt. And so we're going to start with just ads, nothing specific about Franklin, but just this was really popular in the 19th century. You can all see my slides, yes? Good. And you can hear me in the back? Good. Okay, good. Yes? No? More volume. I like it. I can't get any more. Okay, well, all right, I'll keep speaking. I am the very model of a modern major general. Information, vegetable, animal, and mineral. I quote the Heights of England, and that's as much as I remember. Yeah. Marathon, Waterloo. Okay. All right. Question. Okay. Yeah. Better? Yes. In the back. Yeah. No. Nobody's saying up or down. Yeah. They're going icky. Okay. And now, how about now? Yes, no, still kind of icky. Scott is coming back to check on it. And I'll keep talking. Yes, because I'm getting feedback even getting this close.
Turn the gain down.
All right.
Turn
Yeah.
the gain down.
He's saying turn it down.
The gain.
All right.
Gain down.
Come up and if you know audio, video, come up and help.
Yeah.
This is that your name? Yeah. Mark's
If
gonna.
I don't see lipstick on the microphone, then you're not close enough.
Okay. All right. All right. So I'm just gonna keep talking, and if there's questions, then we can cover them. So it was really popular, and sometimes they were kept relatively secure, and sometimes people that were good at codes would get the Sunday paper and sit down at a coffee shop and just crack every one as they were going down and see what people were saying in secret. One person that was very good at this was Ignatius Polacki. He was one of the first private detectives, and he was probably actually the inspiration for Sherlock Holmes. And he would sign these ads as Polacki, and some we know what they say, and others we still don't know what they say. So we still talk about them at my Unsolved Codes panel. They weren't just done in English, they were also done in French. Didier Muller today is going through just one French newspaper, the Figaro, and he has found almost 4,000 cipher messages in French just from that one paper. He's only cracked, or he and his colleagues have only cracked about 64% of them. So anyone that wants to help out that knows French, your assistance would be welcome. So many of these exist. Some are broken, some are not. So more research necessary. So now we're going to go specifically to the one in the London Times, because it was noticed that in the 1850s, there were about 50 ads that showed up, usually around the first of the month between 1850 and 1855. And they tended to start in a similar way. Often they would start with that, see the big S and then LMPI, Slimpy. And they would often start with Slimpy, so they became known as the Slimpy ads among the the upper elite in England who had no idea what they said. And so in the 1850s, that's when they were showing up. Now we're going to fast forward to 1980, when in the Times, still a long-running paper, it published one of these ads and said, "Here's a challenge. Can anybody solve this?" And no one was able to solve it, but one person did notice this set of numbers at the bottom, which looked like a latitude and a longitude. And that person, a judge, had a guess as to what it might refer to, because it pointed to this area in northern Canada, the Arctic archipelago, the Inuit area, depending which you want to call it. And he suspected that in the 1800s, around 1850, 1855, it may have been related to the John Franklin expedition. So, John Franklin expedition, what was that? So again, we're going to zoom back here. Now we're going to the 1840s. And John Franklin, I'm going to take this long story and make it kind of short, but he was a 59-year-old captain who was in charge of one of the expeditions that the English Navy, the Admiralty, was doing to try and find the Northwest Passage. This was sort of the holy grail of getting across the continent. The Panama Canal didn't exist yet. And so they were sending ship after ship trying to find this passage that they believed existed across the northern part of the continent. And he had two very well-equipped ships. They had been warships. So they had the lovely names of the Terror and the Erebus. So they were really strongly built ships. And then they further reinforced them, oaken wood, and then metal in front with the theory, the engineering, that they would be able to be good icebreakers as well. And they stocked them up with years worth of supplies so that the ships could kind of go as far into the ice as they could until they got stuck. And then they would stay there over the course of a winter, overwintering, and then they would continue on the following summer and see if they could push through and find the Northwest Passage that way. So the ships left England to great fanfare. This was the like the space race of the time at that period. So they were the best possibly equipped ships, best possible supplies. It was famous. The public was behind them. They left a great fanfare. They went across the ocean. They stopped off briefly in Greenland to offload some sailors who weren't doing well and bring on some more supplies. They went across the water there known as Baffin Bay. They were seen by some whalers there. They actually had, the captains had a meal together, and the ships continued and vanished. Nothing more was heard from. And this was a big mystery. This was what happened to them. Were they abducted by aliens, or had the ships come to some horrible fate, or what? No one knew. And at first, Lady Franklin, she went to the Admiralty and said, "Where is my husband?" And the Admiralty was like, "Oh, it's fine, he's got supplies." And after a year or so goes by, she was, no, where's my husband? And she was really beating the drum and became the person célèbre of Find the Franklin expedition. And so Her Majesty's government put out a very large award. This would probably be in the neighborhood of $1 million today if someone could find the ships, bring them back, or at least come up with some information about what had happened to ships. And she was also personally financing some expeditions. So there were dozens of expeditions that were going out trying to find what happened to the Franklin expedition. And this really was wonderful at inspiring naval technology at the time, the mapping at the time, because everyone's trying to find the Franklin expedition. Mm-hmm. And these are just a few of the ships that were going out and a few of the captains. And we know that it failed. And the Inuits did have some information, but no one wanted to listen to the Inuits. No one believed the Inuits. It was a very racist attitude of the part of the British public at the time. And today we've got many books that have been written, documentaries. There's the recent one that came out on AMC called The Terror that was based on a book, and they had wonderful research and down to the buttons on the uniforms. They got those right, except they put in a monster kind of happily. They had to, but a lot of it is very accurate. So coming back to those ads, could they have some relationship to the Franklin expedition? So we're going to go back to after the Times did their challenge, kind of percolated out there for a while. And then so we're coming back up to 1992 at this point, and someone named John Rapson, who'd been tinkering with it for a while, and he was able to solve it. He figured out the code system, and he published a paper in the academic journal Cryptologia and said how what the system was, and also he published one of the plain texts. So this particular one from April 2nd, 1852, I'm going to show you how it was taken apart. So if you look at it, you can see the structure of it. It's got a bunch of capital letters that are generally from C through F, and then some S's in there. And there's also a lot of 4-letter groups of letters. And there's also some 3-letter groups of letters. And the smaller lowercase groups, these are only the letters from G to Q. No J, but that's common. They often combine the I and J because it was rare. And then the capital letters from B to F and capital S. So, and there'd be little bits and pieces of clear text in there. So you can see the latitude, longitude, signature, J to W, and other places like you can see where's my mouse? You can see here where it says, can you see my mouse? Is my mouse showing up? Okay. Well, let's see. So it says KT in there. and then R-E, which was possibly Ray, one of the explorers out there, one of the ones who actually talked to the Inuit. But going to the 4-letter groups, 3-letter groups, could this be based on a code book? And what's the best way to break a code book code? Find the code book. Now, this is not the code book, this is a code book. But that's what people would often do, the code crackers, is they look through all the code books that we know about and see if we can find one that matches the system that's in a particular code. Many ciphertexts have been solved this way. So is there a code book that uses 4-letter groups based on G to Q? No. But there is one that uses 4-digit groups, numbers, and this is actually a naval code introduced in 1817 by the English Navy officer Frederick Marryat. And he did this amazing book that was very commonly used throughout the British Navy. And using these numbers, they would then apply these numbers to the flags. So when one ship was trying to communicate with another ship and you saw all the flags fluttering up and down on different sides, those were the code often from this code book. And it would matter what the flags were. Were they in the front, the fore of the ship, aft, which particular line was it on? And each of these different areas would add up to what the message said. So these 4-digit groups. So was the Marryat code used for the ads? Well, we could try replacing those letters with digits 0 to 9 and apply the code, and it doesn't work. Okay. So let's see if we could try something else. Was it maybe the wrong table? So now we're going to do something called looking for cribs, looking for something where we're pretty sure we know a word. And this is what Rabson did. He would take that ciphertext and he saw that it had the clear text word born, B-O-R-N, which was not cipher because the letters aren't in that cipher. So he was saying, okay, that's clear text, born. What word would come before born? Baby, son, daughter, boy, girl. And he made the guess that it was the word son, S-O-N, 4 letters, which would be 8196. So then if you have IQHL and you apply it to 8196 and you get this grid, which looks really nice because you got the 1 and it goes through and you get the 6 and then there's a gap for 7 and 8 and 9. So maybe he's onto something. So then he went looking for another and he found over here where we had for 3 Miok, M-I-O-Q. Well, what could Miok be? And it might be days, weeks, months, a lot of different things. And he made the guess that it might mean months. And months had code 5831. So if we take Miok and we apply it to 5831, that's looking really good as well, because you got the 1 also to the Q, the 3 and the 5, and if we combine those two, that's looking even better. So that's looking like we're getting an actual table. And we would take that with this code and apply it, and aha, plain text. So we still have to do other things. Like I said, there's these groups that are in the code book. What are those capital letters? And what it was is that, say, where there's an E, and E came out to mean, and again, I'm shortening, is part 4. And part 4 in the code book was the rendezvous flag, headlands, ports, and harbors. So the different capital letters meant which part of the code book that you needed to look in. So now we're coming back to that message that we at the latitude and longitude. Can we decrypt it? And yes, we could decrypt it. So that first part, Slimpy, meant all are well at Bolden. Bolden is a small town in northern England near Newcastle. So all are well at Bolden, Julia in somewhere at home, Fanny at Auckland, which didn't mean Auckland, New Zealand. It meant it was a town called Auckland up there near Newcastle. It took us a while to figure that out. Louise, Houghton, Liskane, and Margaret's family, Henry, all at Bolden. Bernard, Bolden, waiting for orders from Panama. Aunt Baker recovering grandly. Families meeting 50th married day, because there's no word in the code book for anniversary. So if you wanted to say anniversary, how would you do it? Married day. Scarlet fever abating. Beatson sailed the Isabella, a steamboat, 14th of March. Patrick Ellett, a very well-known captain in the Arctic expeditions, well prepared for Eastern exhibition. It will be ready sometime in April. Surgeon Ray, returning, has been to latitude and longitude and seen driftwood. I think it was driftwood drift. I have not had tidings of Investigator. Investigator was the sister ship to Collinson's ship. It was the Enterprise and the Investigator. So we have that plain text now. All right. Now, some words we would have to guess, like Charlotte going to, adding to pop. Pop could mean a bunch of different things. Could be popularity, population. In this case, we're thinking that adding to the size of the group that was gathering. So we're thinking population. And Coleridge. So we said Lawrence Delaney is going to marry, and we had Miss, and we had the word Cole and the word Ridge, which probably wasn't really her name, but we did a lot of research and it came out to be Coleridge. All right. So decrypting one ad could take about 2 hours, right? So here is another plain text. Here we would have captains, Captain Penny, Captain Austin. Down at the bottom, we have Mr. Hawks, Gateshead, and there is a large ironworks in Gateshead owned by George Hawks. So who was receiving these messages? Well, 1850 to 1855 might have been Collinson, might have been McClure. McClure was the captain of the Investigator, which was mentioned in one of those ads. So we realize that these were intended for Captain Collinson. Was 39-year-old captain. So Collinson expedition, we're now zooming back to the 1850s. He joined the Royal Navy at age 12, which was not uncommon, rose through the ranks, became a lieutenant at age 24, a captain at 31, and led this expedition to try and find Franklin. He had 2 ships, the Enterprise and the Investigator. Enterprise, 5-year mission aboard Enterprise. All right, here I'll show you some other Enterprise. The picture at the top left there, the Enterprise and the Investigator were actually never together in the ice because they got separated as they were kind of going out past Chile. Their mission was, instead of going from England into the north, was to come around from the other side. So they had to go around the Horn, through to Bering Strait, and then come in from the west. They were going to try and find Franklin from that side. And they got separated around South America. And the Investigator was about 2 weeks ahead of the Enterprise. And then that kind of expanded to, like, because of the way the winters worked, about a year ahead of the Enterprise. I'll tell you more about that. And the logs of Collinson, after Collinson passed away, his brother Bernard went through all the logs and he wrote them all up in his story, The Journey of the HMS Enterprise. And it's a wonderful, it's like an adventure novel. It's very exciting, kind of going through the ice and seeing the Eskimos. And on this one page, you can see that they mention the cipher notices in the Times, and which used the signal book of the Royal Navy, and that it was regularly inserted in the Times. So the mystery about the purpose of the messages was solved. So we call this the first known secure global communication. That his family would publish encrypted ads at the Times. The theory was that though they didn't know exactly where Collinson was going to be at any particular time during these 5 years, they knew that any city that he was going to put into port would probably have copies of the London Times, because the Times was just everywhere around the world. And so the theory was that wherever he was, he'd be able to get copies of the Times, look for right around the first of the month, look for those Slimpy ads at the top, decrypt them, and get some information from home. But as I said, they did get separated. And did the system work? Well, once. In 1854, as he was going out through Indonesia, there's this area where the port is called Banyuwangi or Banjowangi, or it's spelled in probably 10 different ways. But when he was there, he was able to get 4 copies of the Times and get some information about home that way. And when I did some research in Greenwich at the Royal Museums, the Royal Maritime Museum, I was able to actually see his logbook, which is pretty exciting, where it said right there, 2 p.m. anchored 4 miles north of Banyuwangi. Here is a drawing of Banyuwangi. This would have been a few years later when they were laying down undersea cables. This was one of the areas that they laid them down. So it was not a particularly built up area, but it was the area that everybody went through because it was that narrow strait. So now we're going to come forward again to 2016, and were the ships found? They were found in 2014. One of the ships was found off of King William Island, and another one was found off of King they were both off King William Island. So the Erebus and the Terror. The Terror was found in the coincidentally named Terror Bay. The bay is not named after the ship. The ship just happened to be found there. And they were actually found several miles south of where they'd been abandoned. So once they were abandoned, and then the ice and the weather would bring the ship south, and then when they finally collapsed, those were the areas where the wrecks are. And they're being investigated with great care because they're very fragile. We're sending crews down. The crews can only go down in the summers, and they'll go down. There was one that I think just went down in 2023, and then they have robots that they're kind of sending in and are going in and exploring the inside of the ship. So we have found what we believe are the desks of captains with closed drawers in the desks that we really want to go in and open the drawers and see what's in there. But so far, they're just being explored very carefully. Also, the ownership of the area is a little ambiguous. This is Parks Canada that is going up there and doing this. However, the Inuit in the area also have claims. These are traditional hunting grounds of the Inuit. So we'll say this area is off limits to everyone except the Inuit when they want to come in and you can do hunting. And I think that's awesome because we would not have found the ships except for the reports from the Inuit. Now, the British didn't want to pay attention to those, partially because they just didn't believe them, and also because the Inuit don't use written language when they record. They use verbal, oral language. And this is passed down for hundreds of years with very precise locations. Like if you know that you stored meat like 2 days in that direction and you're giving instructions to your son on 2 days in that direction, you want to be very precise as to where that is. And so those words and language that they would use would have that kind of precise usage. And so they passed down what they saw of 40 white men were seen coming south. They were starving. And we gave them some meat, but we couldn't feed 40 men. So mostly we observed them as they went by, which was another reason that the British weren't really thrilled with them. But the Inuit had to do, they're trying to feed their own families in this area. And they would have these information, and so they would call it the boat places where they had seen these ships over there off of this island, over there off of this island, because they saw the boat, and when the boat sank, the masts were actually sticking up out of the water. And so they could see this, and they would communicate this to modern researchers who were paying attention to what the Inuit were saying. And with the combination of that and undersea sonar that's being tracked along, we were able to finally find the ships in 2014 and 2016. So now let's talk about the decryption project. So we're going to 2023 at this point. So we know that encryption had been broken. Not very many ads have been decrypted yet or fully decrypted. And no one had really read the messages, because often cryptanalysts, what we want to know is, can we crack it? And once it's cracked, we're done. We don't really care what it said. So I was trying to put something together and said, okay, we're cracking it and we're actually going to read it and try and get all the information together and put it in its proper context. So I brought this up at the ACA, which was the American Cryptogram Association, and my co-author, Klaus Schmidt. And we got a lot of attention from a few people that helped us crack the messages, but then, as I said, they kind of went on their way. But Taylor Leach got really interested in what the messages were saying as well. So we had the virtual meeting in 2023. We did a bunch of Zoom calls. And our goal is to decrypt all of them and to research background. So this is a list of all the ads. They were generally every month. There were a few places where there was a gap. We think that some of those gaps were because someone had a baby, or there might be, like I said, the 50th anniversary, things that distracted people from placing an ad. And we looked really carefully, like going through, okay, was it first, second, third, fourth, maybe it wasn't Slimpy, maybe it said something else, but some of these days we just could not find any messages. And we're also very interested in the signature blocks on these. Most of them said JW, which we now know for sure because we did find an article that said JW is Julia Dunin, a sister of Richard Collinson. He was one of 15 children. 15 children. He was the third son, and he had several sisters. Julia was actually a novelist, and so she was one of the people encrypting these messages and posting them. Then we have others. AC, we're pretty sure now, and this is live research. We're talking about this every week. AC, we're pretty sure is Amelia Collinson. That was Collinson's mother. TBC, we're thinking was Thomas Bernard Collinson, his younger brother, who wrote the book. And ACB, we're thinking was Amelia Collinson and Bernard. Again, just a guess, but we're pretty comfortable with that. And then there's one ZA. We still don't know what a ZA is. So if anyone has a guess, bring it up. So Taylor wrote a decryption tool. He based it on the client side, JavaScript, and the browser. So here for the Electronic Frontiers Forum, I actually haven't seen JavaScript. I have something technically. And you can get access to this if you go to agony.news. Agony, because the agony column is often what these areas in the newspapers were called. People would be writing of their love, and so agony messages, encrypted messages. But if you go to agony.news, you can get access to some of the code. He created the code book using OCR of the entire code book with some manual cleaning, and includes a section to ignore some of the clear text and manual cleanup. That's really time-consuming part. I won't say tedious because we love doing it, but you really have to go through and see, okay, this is what the computer said, now that we think it really says, and go back and forth. So we're not 100% sure on every ad. We have to guess. Decrypting is a lot of guesswork. And we have the spreadsheet. We're using Google Drive for a lot of this. So we have ciphertext on the left, and on the right is what the computer system did, and in the middle is after our manual cleanup. This is what we're coming up with. So we've also found that there were letters that were sent to Collinson. So we've done research at the Royal Maritime Museum in Greenwich. This is the Cairds Library and Archive. You can see on the left where these books on shelves, they're very serious about taking care of everything in their within their control there. And when we went in, they wouldn't let me bring anything in. I had to take off my money belt, my bag, everything went into a locker. I couldn't even bring in a pen. The only thing we were allowed to bring in was pencils. And this was because they want to make very sure that everything stays very clean. On the left there, you can see where I'm working. That big gray pillow is if you had, what this wasn't just Collinson, they have a lot of other things as well. But you could put a book on the pillow and that would keep you from cracking the spine if you're trying to look at a very old book. And when I could only order 10 things a day, you had to order them like a day or two ahead of time. And then they would give you one thing at a time. And I do my research, I give it back, and then they give me another thing, do my research. And if I needed to have two things at once, well, I would just have to do them one at a time. They got to know me. I'm like, okay, I'm giving it back. Now I need the other one. Okay, I'm giving it back. Okay, now I need the other one. But bit by bit, I was taking pictures of a lot of pages. I didn't get a chance to take a picture of everything I wanted to, because this is all being done as part of my summer vacation. What are you doing? Oh, I have 3 days in London. I'm going to spend it at the Royal Maritime Museum. So, taking pictures of a lot of things. Klaus was also there, and you can see Taylor in the background there. So these are some of the letters that we saw. Amelia, his Collinson's mother, and John, his father, his dad was the rector of the church in Bolden. They would generally write to him once a week, once a month, and we have most of those letters that are in the museum. I also wanted to see letters from Collinson. So I could see mention of those, that he wrote back from the Magellan Straits, that he wrote back from Hong Kong, but all those letters are gone. We don't know what happened in those letters. We know that his mother collected them and had them all together, but now we don't know what happened to that. So was it lost? Was it sold to a private collector? Did she choose to have them buried with her? We don't know. We just don't know. We'd love to see them. We'd love to see them, but not available. Now, when they wrote to him, that was also an interesting exercise. How do you write to someone who's on the move over 5 years? And so they would write to Captain Collinson, somewhere near the North Pole. Hope that it would get to him that way. Let's see, what was another one? Hong Kong. Hope that somebody there in Hong Kong would know where Collinson was, or maybe where his ship was. This was one, Arctic Expedition, Pacific. and hope that it would get there. So we think that some of them got through, and they were sent like normal mail. They had to have a stamp on it, and they had to pay postage on them. but the addresses were very vague. So, so we know that there were two methods of communication. We know that there was the newspaper ads that they were sending and also the letters that were being sent from his parents and also from other relatives as well. So what did the ads talk about? Well, we know, as I said, what we think that the signature blocks mean. And they talked a lot about windows. And window is in church. The windows are in. And what we found out was the Collinson family was financing improvements to the church, the Bolton Church, some stained glass windows. We even found some sketches that they did of it, saying this is what it used to look like, this is what it does look like. So they're very excited about that. And I wanted to go to Bolton, and I did go to Bolton, and I wanted to take a picture of the stained glass windows, but they were replaced about 100 years ago. So now the question is, they were replaced. So the old windows were taken out, so new windows could be put in. Where are those windows now? I don't know. And what do you do with a window? Because they bring them out in sections. Do they put it in a box? Were they thrown away? Are there scattered bits of glass? Were they put in a window somewhere else? Don't know. We'd love to see them though. It says, oh, this was interesting. After it says 3 new windows put into Bolton, Dalmatia, Queen opening Newcastle Station late in August. As I went up to Bolton, I went through Newcastle Station. So it was an amazing experience to go through the station that had been launched August 29th, 1850. And here I am in 2025 going through that same station, and it held up really, really well. I mean, they literally.
Today, right? Hey, happy anniversary.
Yeah, exactly, exactly. Oh, today, yeah, August 29th. They said they built the thing to last. That's a good point. I haven't put there, anniversary. So that's 170 years. No, 100, somebody do math. So
175.
175, thank you. I would have gotten it. Okay. So other things is that the ads would sometimes share recent headlines. For example, here, Bernard has been made engineer to the Great Exhibition. This was a massive exhibition, basically the first event of what today we call World's Fairs. Then they called it the Great Expedition, and it was in a huge building. If you've ever heard the Crystal Palace, that was from this Great Exhibition. And Bernard, the younger brother who wrote the book and also may have written some of the ads, was one of the engineers at the Great Exhibition. This was another headline. Lady Peel's husband, who we know now is Sir Robert Peel, the previous UK Prime Minister, was killed last month by a fall from a horse. And this was Sir Robert Peel. And so again, they're putting these into these ads and giving Collinson just tiny, tiny snippets of what's going on in the home country. This was another one. The Duke of Wellington died early on September 14th. Main hold. We don't know what main hold means. It might be a typo. There were a lot of typos in there. Could it mean that his body was in the hold of a ship like they did sometimes? We don't know what main hold means. So if you have ideas. And he was actually buried next to Admiral Nelson, which was a huge, huge honor. Dr. Ray discovered remains of John Franklin. So also in the ads, Collinson was, if he would have gotten all these early on, would have gotten some snippets about what are other rescue expeditions doing right around then. And this was Dr. Ray. He actually learned the language of the Inuit and traveled as Inuit. He learned what kind of skins to wear. He could travel on his own. He didn't need to have a ship around him. He could just go and travel and actually build his own igloo as he traveled. One of the problems, though, was he learned from the Inuit that the remnants of the Franklin expedition, as they are starving and heading south 1,000 miles, trying to get to a British trading post or human being civilization, had probably done the last resort, which was cannibalism. So members of their expedition that died, they were eating some meat there. And the Inuit had actually seen this, had seen like their cook pots and things, and seen the bones. But when Ray reported this in England, it was outrage. No British officers would ever, fall to cannibalism. This can't have been true. This is made up. And all these reports came out trying to discredit Ray. Even a good friend of Lady Franklin, the author, Dickens, was writing reports in the newspapers trying to discredit Ray. And he even wrote a play about these strong, brave explorers who were trying to get out of the Arctic, where again, he was discrediting Ray. Now we know that Ray is telling the truth, but at the time, his reputation was just trashed because the British public just didn't want to believe it, that British officers could fall into cannibalism. And also something was going on was a war in the Black Sea. This was the Crimean War, and some other members of the Collinson family, they were other captains and involved with the naval industry, were going to war in the Black Sea as well. This was something else, bits and pieces we'd see in the ads. So some conclusion here. We know that Collinson's family sent messages to Collinson. They also sent letters. We have decrypted all of them at this point. We're still going through with the manual cleanup. Our target is, once we do the manual cleanup of these 51 ads, we're going to publish a paper in Cryptologian. I have a colleague like, are we done yet? We've been doing it for years now, but I want to make sure we do it right. So, any questions? Yeah, come on up. The microphone here. Oh, you're dressed for the occasion. Yeah.
Try to be. One, two, one, two. Okay.
Yep.
Okay, so for example, the last plain text message you had was about the Crimean War. This is in the newspaper. Why are they putting secret messages about news headlines in the newspaper that they can just read?
It's a good question, and you would assume that if he was having the Times, he would then have news about the Crimean War.
Yeah.
Is it Crimean? It's Crimean.
Whatever.
Yeah, okay.
Well, my issue is, were any of these scoops, like, did you happen to see that the message happened to predate what the paper had said, or?
Well, it's a great question. And one thing about the Crimean War is that he would know which members of his own family were going to battle there. And some of these people were friends of the family. So they weren't just saying, oh, it was the prime minister that died. It was the prime minister that we had dinner with a year ago. So there's sort of a personal aspect of it.
Okay, so like when the guy who died in the horse accident, I imagine there was, yeah, duh. It's like the paper, or the article next to this says
If you're
that.
reading the Times, you would think that the article would be there. Yes, we were thinking about this well.
Okay,
Yeah.
I was curious why secret.
Yeah.
This was fantastic. So yes, everybody rate it. But I was wondering if you had this presentation available anywhere. Can we get the presentation from you?
Yes. Scott, when will it be up? Someday, after everyone recovers from driving. Usually comes in a couple months.
Before Thanksgiving, usually.
Before Thanksgiving.
Would this be on the Academy News website or where will it
YouTube, look for Electronic Frontiers.
be? Okay.
Yeah.
Sounds good.
We'll also have a paper in Cryptologia at some point. And I'm also putting together a separate talk just on the whole Arctic aspect of it, because there's just so much cool stuff going on with the search expedition.
That's awesome. Thank you so much. I appreciate it.
How much did these advertisements cost?
Yeah, we were kind of looking at those, and you have to compare it with what's how much things cost then and what would the rating be. Ballpark in today's money, $30 to put in one of these ads. Yeah.
What were some of the reasons for other encrypted ads? And like, could the public like figure them out, and did it cause any problems?
Okay, so really faint. So you're saying, what is the purpose for the other encrypted ads and,
And if anyone ever figured them out, if it had any consequences?
okay, did anyone figure them out? The other ads?
Yeah.
Yes, yes to all of the above. The other ads were most commonly lovers that were trying to communicate in the 1800s. They didn't have telephone yet, and they would sometimes send encrypted postcards to each other. The postcard, one of the problems is that you send it to someone and it's going through a lot of hands on the way to the person you're sending to. And if you're just writing like, oh, I love you, and I'll meet you at our secret rendezvous by the tree, and you've got like 12 other people that are reading it. So they would encrypt it. Often the encryption was just, I love you and I miss you, and why aren't you writing back? So a lot of ghosting that was going on. These particular ads, Slimpy ads, there was a lot of speculation, and people were actually writing short stories with their guesses about what the Slimpy ads said, which would be completely wrong. But because no one else knew what it said, they could just make it up and no one would know. And now would know, but back then, nobody except his family knew.
So were these
Did that answer your question? Yeah, okay.
So were these a morning and evening edition morning and evening edition newspapers? So like, would there be like one code in the morning and an answer in the afternoon?
Of these with the Collinson, it was one per day. We're very sure of that because we've gone in and looked through newspapers.com, and the times.com has its own archive, and there's also a British newspapers archive site. So we're very sure that it was one per day, and then there would be a special edition on Sundays. For what she was talking about with the back and forth, it would usually be about 3 or 4 days in between.
Oh, goodness. Yes, hi.
Hi.
I'm wondering if some of the evidence that Dr. Ray gathered was it about the rowboat that they found with either 2 or 3 bodies, some of which had the marks on the legs.
Yeah. He found some of that, and the more research that is done, the more bones that are being found kind of up and down the coast, because there were 129 men, if I'm getting it wrong, somebody tell me, that were coming south, and they were sick from a lot of different reasons. Why did they die? They died, they didn't have the right food. The canned food that they had that was supposed to keep them going for years was bought from the lowest bidder. So a lot of it wasn't sealed properly. Also, the seals often used lead. So there was some lead poisoning going on there. And also the people, I mentioned that 5 sailors had been offloaded in Greenland. They were dead because of tuberculosis. So we knew that tuberculosis was already on board the ship. So that was another disease that was going around. And as these men are coming south and they're sick and they're not fed well, and scurvy is coming in as well. And sometimes what they would just do is they would say, okay, you 30 guys that are dying, sorry, goodbye. And they'd head south. And so we would find a place with 30 bodies with some supplies and maybe one of the boats that was being used for shelter. So it's really sad story going on.
Hi. I have 2 questions.
Sure.
One is just so I can sleep tonight. How do you have the letters they sent to him?
Say again?
How do you have the letters that were sent to him?
It's a great question. And we believe what it was is that the letters were sent to him, were saved by him. And then he presented those letters either to his family, which went to the museum, or directly to the museum, because we have his logbooks that he kept from his ship. And those logbooks are now in the museum. So clearly there were packets of materials that were being sent or eventually ended up at the museum.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
And then I was just wondering, because it started with the coordinates were in Slimpy
So were they still sending out, once they found the coordinates of the driftwood, they were still sending out coded messages, or I think I messed up the timeline?
Okay, so one of the messages they sent said Ray, R-A-E, had found some driftwood at a certain location. And then they continued sending messages every month or so. So it was just one of the places where they were giving us snippets of what they'd heard in the news about what's going on with the Arctic expedition.
Just hoping he was reading it,
Yeah.
or could find it. Okay. Thank you.
Yeah.
Hi, I was interested in the like one remaining like unknown authors of the messages.
They really faint.
I was interested in like the one remaining like unknown author of the messages, like the ZA person.
ZA, okay, yeah.
Do the content of the messages suggest that that would also be a family member, or is it could be like a friend or someone else?
It could be a close friend. The whole town of Bolden was with Collinson, right? They had the older generations and aunts and uncles. They had the siblings, and then the siblings' spouses and those children. So, and they all had nicknames. And someone could have 4 different first names, but they call them Ziggy, right? So, Ziggy could have been one of his married sisters. And often we don't know the nicknames that they were called. We're doing tons of genealogical research. We have one woman who also loves genealogy research, and she finds some stuff. But if anyone here loves genealogy and wants to help out, come on, join. I'll give you credit in the paper. I'll give you credit in the paper. Because there's just so many details that we're trying to sort through.
Thank you.
Hi, another thought occurred to me. The AMC movie, The Terror,
Mhm.
the book that is based on is absolutely phenomenal. I happened to have checked it out at the library, the audiobook,
Mhm.
and I listened to it during what we all know in Atlanta as snowpocalypse. And if anyone is interested in, there's the whole monster thing, but in learning about the Franklin expedition, what makes that reading so unique is the narrator gets the accents of the different classes of sailors, and also one of the first mates was from Belfast. So you have the upper class, you have the cook, and I highly recommend it, just because it's so well.
I'm gonna go get it. Yeah, okay, thank you. Thank you. Okay. Any other questions? All right, how are we doing on time?
Yeah.
Do I have time for an extra credit thing? Oh, ooh. So let me show you something that I'm putting together. So this is a Google map where I am putting down the coordinates of what I can of which ship was where. And this is Collinson's ship.
You can't see that.
You can't see it. Well, that kind of sucks. Why does it? Is it on one of them?
Yeah, just drag it over off the edge of the.
Oh, okay, so I need to mirror. Let's see if I can do that in less than 2 minutes.
Hold down the window button and press P.
Okay. Say that again?
Hold down the window key
Mhm.
and press P until it gives you what you want.
Aha. Okay. I'm trying to, it's not going down. How about that?
Moving something, okay.
Okay, let me come back here.
There you go.
All right. So this is a horribly extended map, but this is showing that Collinson, and they went up the Bering Strait, and then he came in, and there's the Prince of Wales Strait over here. And the investigator was always a little ahead of him, which was really frustrating. But when he got up to this point and he found a cairn that had been left by the investigator, and so then he headed south and just got really involved in the mapping of this, which would be useful for future ships, and then came out and survived, which was very unusual for any of the Arctic search expeditions. They tended to get stuck. For example, the investigator Okay, that's the green one over here, had gotten there before the Enterprise, had gotten, this is as far east as it had gotten, and then it had to go west, and it overwintered in the water there and the ice, and then got pushed west and west into a bay here, which was called David and James Bay, and that was it for the Investigator. It got stuck there for 2 years, never got out, and had to be rescued overland by another expedition by Captain Belcher, or Belker, I don't know how you pronounced it, and he had ships up north of the area, so one of his, and he was stuck in the ice, so he was sending out sledge search parties in every direction for hundreds of miles, and one of them ran across the Investigator and hauled them northeast to the ships, and then his ships still could not get out of the ice, so he abandoned all but one of his ships and dragged everyone all the way over here to the east, where he had a supply ship at Beechy Island, and then they were able to get out that way. So the captain of the Investigator, Captain McClure, he made this claim that he was the first to traverse the Northwest Passage because he had come in from the west, got here, dragged all the way east. Theoretically, yes, he and everyone on the ship, they were the first to traverse the Northwest Passage. Not all by ship, though. And something else that I think is just fascinating is that when they were there, they were tantalizingly close to where the Franklin expedition had been. Where is it there? Come on, show up.
Reload the page.
Yeah, it should be showing up.
Reload the page.
An error occurred. Do I still have internet? Yes, I have internet. Okay, well, maybe I won't show you. This is going to take like 10 minutes. My map. I think my internet is not so good.
The demo gun turned it off.
I have internet here. My phone here. That's right. That's right.
Hey.
Much better. Oh. Yeah. So you can see they were tantalizingly close. This is only a few hundred miles from where Collinson was and where the Franklin ships were. Now, granted, he was there in like 1851, 1852. It's possible that there were Franklin survivors as late as 1851, but they would have been heading south, trying to get out of the area there. But that they were so close is just one of the tantalizing things about the whole search expeditions. And one other thing I'll share is that the Belcher expedition, where he had abandoned all of his ships and everyone had to walk out from there. Okay, one of the ships that he abandoned was over here, was the HMS Resolute. That name may be familiar to some people. It survived and became a ghost ship where the ice pack carried it south and continued carrying it east. This was over a year. It was a ghost ship, no one aboard, came all the way over here, came about 2,000 miles down here, and then it was discovered by a whaling ship, claimed it as salvage, patched it up, sailed it further south here to Connecticut. Then there was a grand debate in Congress about what to do, because it was an American whaling ship that had found a British naval ship, and what to do with it. Politics being what it was, they decided to fix it up, make it all shiny, and they presented it back to Queen Victoria. Queen Victoria, and then it became a ship still in service for another 20 years. Then when they were breaking it up, these wonderful oaken wood, they made various pieces of furniture out of it and other parts. And one of the grand pieces of furniture that they made was a large desk, which they gifted back to the US president. It was President Hayes at that time. Then it was kind of transferred around different parts of the White House because there wasn't really a home for it. Fast forward to 1961. First Lady Jackie Kennedy was looking for antiques in the White House, found that desk in a junk room, cleaned it up, put it in the middle of the Oval Office, and it is the desk that is there today, the Resolute desk. If you see the picture of Kennedy with his son peeking through, that's the Resolute desk. And I think most people have no clue what that ship has been through. Okay, well, that's it, and thank you very much.